7 Press Summit, including such sports notables as Howard Cosell, Ronaldo Nehemiah, Bowie Kuhn, and Cornelius Bennett. Tonight's moderator, Frank Deford, the senior writer for Sports Illustrated.
Let's turn to Cornelius Bennett, who I see in the paper today is slated absolutely for the Indianapolis Colts. And since the owner of the Colts is well known as a man of probity and sobriety, and that's surely the case, how do you feel about going to Indianapolis?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm going there until Tuesday morning. They call my name, so it's a tough situation with Mr. USSA. But my agent is doing a real good job, and that's the reason I hired him. So I'm not in the process of going through the negotiation. I'm letting my agent handle that. So, but from being around people and knowing Mr. USSA, says he's a tough man to deal with, and I'm finding out.
Are you comfortable going to Indiana?
Well, yes, because that's an opportunity that is coming that I always wanted when I, growing up playing football, is to have a chance to play professional football, and I'm one of those people that just take the chance and, take that opportunity and go with it.
How do you feel about being probably selected number 2 and the top defensive player in all the country?
Well, through high school, well, my chance of going to college, it started out that I didn't have a chance, and then I got moved to a position where I got the spotlight put on me, and then I got a scholarship to the University of Alabama. And then, my sophomore year, I made All-American, and then my other 2 years, I also made All-American, and my chances became greater to get a chance to play in the NFL, and it's here, and being chosen second player in the draft is something that, is very special.
You good? Thank you. Ben Weider. Ben, you've spoken out often against steroid use, but it would appear, or at least an awful lot of people say, that you cannot succeed in your field unless you use steroids. A, is this correct? And B, what can you do about it?
Well, actually, it's misleading to think that a bodybuilder has to use steroids if he's going to get his maximum development. He can get the same development by using proteins, amino acids, and heavier training. It means getting a shortcut to success by using steroids, but the actual physique is not the same. They're more water heavy, and therefore they don't look as well when they're defined. The image of bodybuilding has been cleaned up tremendously because the last 3 years we've introduced steroid testing, and the athletes look much better, and they feel much better, and everybody is for it. So it's really happening.
Do you think that most of the bodybuilders understand how dangerous steroids are? Has that message gotten across?
Yes, but I don't think it really makes a difference, not only to the bodybuilders, but to any athlete. If it means that they have to win and jeopardize their health, they would do it for the short-term benefit. But I think our message has gotten through on the basis that they could succeed without using that dangerous drug. And it's happening because we had an American team in Tokyo last year that dominated the championships, and none of the athletes used the steroids.
Can you be sure of that, Ben? I'm not questioning it, but that you're certain that that's the case?
Yes, because we picked out, well, say 12 of the athletes of 120 were shown positive, and some of them stopped using the steroids as far as 9 months back. So the system is pretty sophisticated. We use the IOC methods of drug control.
Do you think then possibly that bodybuilders are even setting some kind of an example for athletes in other sports, American football, for example, that you guys can be pathfinders and bringing them back to the straight and narrow?
Yes, because, bodybuilders have been known as chemical athletes. At least that is what we were called for a long time. So cleaning up that image, I'm sure, will set an example for others as well.
You think it might help if that image is cleaned up to get bodybuilding into the Olympics?
Well, we're borderline Olympic recognition right now. I'm into heavy discussions with the committee. And I think they will be making a decision. I think right now they're meeting in Lausanne, and one of the items on the agenda is recognition for bodybuilding.
And if indeed its image of a clean sport, might that help you be chosen over other sports, do you think?
Yes. Well, there's another reason. Bodybuilding happens to be one of the most popular sports in the world. We have 129 nations that are members, including the People's Republic of China. And something extremely unusual. Last year, the Chinese introduced bodybuilding to women. And for the first time, they allowed women athletes to use bikinis. That was a major change in their cultural habits. And there was a political discussion amongst the Communist Party leaders. Half were totally opposed to the image of women wearing bikinis, where the other half said, well, we're living in the 20th century. We have to join the international sport federations. These are the rules, and let's do it. They attracted 800 journalists at their last national championships for women.
With the bikinis?
In China, with the bikinis. And without the steroids.
One vote for bikinis and one against steroids.
I'd like to make just
Yes,
one
sir.
little point.
No, go ahead.
We're concerned not only in the usage of steroids for humans, but you're probably very aware that farmers are using steroids and chemicals and various drugs when they feed their animals and fatten them up. And we get that chemicals when we eat the meat. There's a scandal going on right now that there are 4 million Americans suffering from salmonella. Usually you get that problem when you eat contaminated food. But they eat wholesome food, supposedly, and they get that problem, the salmonella, from the cows that are being fed steroids, chemicals, and drugs to fatten them up. The intelligent way to stop the usage of steroids on the bottom is to stop it at the top, because the youngsters look up to the champions. And when they realize that the champions are no longer using steroids, and when they realize they're not going to get anywhere because the drug testing filters down to the national and regional levels as well, they're obligated to give up the steroids. First of all, they won't have that image of the huge champion because they won't be using the steroids anymore. They aren't. And second of all, I think that the educational processes which is taking place right now is playing a very influential factor in changing their ideas.
Mr. Cosell, I want to read a couple of letters to you in preface to this that came for an article that I wrote recently in Sports Illustrated. These are letters to the editor. This one's from Vermont. I've got one question for Frank Deford. Is he related to Howard Cosell? This one is from Salisbury, Maryland. Frank Deford, please jump in the boat with Howard Cosell bound for Liberalville. And this one is from Pittsburgh. Call a doctor. Frank Deford appears to have contracted Cosell's syndrome. This was because I wrote an article against boxing. How do you feel, Howard? Should boxing stay around? The professional game, the Olympic version, all of it? What's your view?
Well, every medical authority, every authoritative medical body everywhere in the world has agreed that boxing, professional style, should be abolished. The reasons are manifold. The crooked, tawdry, sordid nature of the industry, dominated by two men as promoters who are concerned only with themselves and not the good health and well-being of the men who fight for a living. Secondly, all medical research discloses how deep is the evidence that brain damage is inevitable in professional boxing. The most esteemed medical authority in the world is the present dean of the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. His former position was as dean of the Stanford University College of Medicine. His name is Dominic Purpura. If one were to study this subject, one would talk to Dr. Purpura, who would take a model of the human cranium and show you exactly what happens inevitably to the brain when blows are repeatedly struck to the head. And the best evidence is in the case of Muhammad Ali, who is now a vegetable. Everywhere you turn, there is this evidence. the answering arguments. It's a way out of the ghetto. For whom? Who came out of it with any money? Maybe 4 or 5 men that I could name, one of whom happens to be Floyd Patterson, and one of whom, if he's not struck in the eye but has continued to be allowed to fight, will be Sugar Ray Leonard. But who? And how dare they tell us that let them stay away from boxing, the doctors, when they can't cure the common cold or cancer? What kind of argument is that? The real questions concern the media, in my opinion, Frank. How is it that the corruption of the networks is so overt that they provide the funds for boxing? And where in the world are the men of your profession? What is their desperate need to go to Atlantic City or Las Vegas, to have the trip, to get the food for free and everything else? No. Your corruption in your field is covert, under a pretension of integrity lodged in the First Amendment. So I find that sports print medium, apart from a handful of people like yourself, are really more guilty of corruption than the networks, for whom I have total contempt anyway.
Would you include Olympic boxing in a ban, amateur boxing as well?
I have come to have grave doubts about Olympic boxing. There is this difference between Olympic boxing and professional boxing. The people who run Olympic boxing care about the youngsters. They take, with fine medical advices, every possible precaution to protect the young Olympic fighter. But after long hours in the colleges of medicine, beginning with Dr. Purpura, I'm convinced that the human brain is even more vulnerable at the tender ages at which Olympians fight than the professional fighter. And so, as much as I respect the people who run the Olympic boxing programs, I now have grave doubts about the continuance of Olympic boxing. And it would be dishonest of me to say otherwise.
Of course, people say to you...
By the way, you know that Norway and Sweden, boxing has already been abolished, and there has been no noticeable deterioration in the respective civilizations of both countries. Then they say it'll go underground. They'll fight in caves or on ships more than 12 miles out. Who'll go? Maybe Don King, he's already run it in the Marion Correctional Institute, and right out here in the aircraft carrier Lexington, where unfortunately I called those fights.
Well, that a lot of people say Cosell took the money and ran. He worked in boxing for years,
Sure.
And now that they don't want him, he's turned on boxing.
Who doesn't want me? I bought out my contract to get away from it all and have given up voluntarily more than $10 million in the last 4 years.
That's the question.
I never saw a sports writer give up a free beer or a hot dog.
You gentlemen are laughing. Do you have any... Would you like a beer? Thank you, Howard. Bill Bowerman. Where's Bill? Is the United States falling behind an awful lot of sports where we're not doing as well as we used to? Is it possible our kids are too fat and happy and don't have the kind of competitive instincts that we used to have in this country and that Europeans and Asians and Africans are passing us?
I doubt if the United States is falling behind. I think that immediately after World War II, which of course is 45 years ago, we still had a lot of very healthy young men, whereas the rest of the world was decimated. I think the rest of the world has caught up a great deal. I do think that there's one area where we are falling behind, and that is our ability to offer physical education as such to the total population of young men and young women.
How can we change that situation?
Well, at one time we had mandatory physical education. I think that we do have a very affluent society now, and it's not as easy for people to look for some way to express themselves as it used to be 20 or 30 years ago. They found expression in the fields of physical activity. There are greater opportunities than just physical opportunities now, but we do have a pretty soft society, and it's getting softer, and it's awfully easy to get that buck. I disagreed with part of your concept on there's more dough in it for the man than there is the women. I think there's too much money in it for the so-called amateur athlete. We need to tighten our belts and get back to what the real purposes of education are, and that's where our programs come from, is our educational programs from the high school and the universities. And if we go to the club sports programs as they have in Europe, I think we will probably lower ourselves more, but I think the rest of the world has caught up a great deal.
Thank you. Yes?
Right now there seems to be a boom on adult fitness, but there seems to be a corresponding decrease in youth fitness. Why do you think this is?
I think it's the affluent society. As people have gotten to be 30 years old, and when I was working with some of our medical people on the jogging program 20 years ago, this cardiologist internist, he says, don't call them fat slobs, you'll use them, call them mature adults. So the youngsters in the grade schools, particularly in the grade schools before they get into high school, tend to be pretty fat. Whereas people that are 20 years old, they begin to take a little pride in what they hope they'll look like, and as they get their exercise, they are probably in better shape than they were when they were 15 to 20.
Aren't these the same people that also have children in the school range?
Very likely, but I don't think the parents can charge the schools with the total responsibility for educating these youngsters in fitness as well as in the responsibility is with the parents as well as with the school.
Bill, you made, just before we let you go, you made quick allusion to the fact of amateurs, and you wish we could get back to a time where there was a more pure amateurism. A lot of people said that we suffered in track and field because the best athletes would go into other sports where they could get paid. Do you think now perhaps we're attracting better young men and women to track and field because they can make a living at it?
I think possibly the pendulum swung a little bit too far, and maybe it'll come back.
Okay, thank you. Penny, last job. You won the AMF American Award last year as the nation's top senior gymnast. You going to go out for the Olympics?
I don't know. It's a hard decision to make right now. It's kind of too far ahead. There's a whole other year before the games, and right now I have my sights set on World University Games. I've been doing gymnastics since I was 7 years old, and although it's not like boxing, gymnastics is really hard on your body. It's a lot of pounding and landing and every day, hours a day. So it's hard to say. My body's not like it was when I was 16.
When you were a kid, yeah.
I'm over the hill at 23, but I don't know. I'd like to. If I could keep training, if God allows me, I will.
Do you find a tremendous difference in the attitude that people take toward gymnastics? In other words, when Mary Lou Retton was hot 24 years ago, was there much more interest in your sport? Do you find it tapering off as you get further and further away from the Olympics?
No, on the contrary. After the '84 games and Mary Lou did so well and the men's team had won, there was an increase in the amount of people, the children, that entered gymnastics. And now, 3 years later, in the lower levels of gymnastics, the class 3, class 2 level, the state meets and the regional meets are overcrowded because of the popularity of 84. I think after 72, after Kathy Rigby had been America's sweetheart, the popularity grew and then it dropped until, of course, 84 and Mary Lou Retton.
Any questions from the guys? You just guys want a free beer and some... Just waiting for that, huh? Mr. Kim, what does the situation look like with North Korea? Do you think that they're going to cause a problem, or are things moving well for the '88 Olympics?
Why you ask so difficult question to me? Well, this moment I can say we agreed, disagreed. You know what meaning?
Yes.
We have 3 times a meeting with the North Korea and IOC, but we have no result. So 2 days ago, I have a meeting with Mr. Samarang at Lausanne. We tried to have a 4th meeting coming 15 July. I think it's the last time. IOC proposed to North and the South, especially to South, give 2 sports and 2 events to give to North Korea. Already you know 2 sports is archery and table tennis. 2 events is preliminary football game and road cycling, road racing. About that final proposal from IOC, already we agreed. But from North Korea, they agreed in principle. But this moment, I don't understand what the meaning in principle. So we have another time. I don't know about that.
But you are through with meetings, no more meetings. I mean, it's their decision to make now.
Yeah, but we have one more chance.
One more. In July.
Yeah, but we open our society, very pathetic society. But I don't know the result of that.
Thank you very much.
I will do my best.
Thank you. Ronaldo. Question. What will it take for you to return to #1 in track and field?
Basically, I'm just going to have to recondition myself mentally to want it again. I'm falling into a John McEnroe syndrome, maybe even a Sugar Ray Leonard syndrome, most recently, which is everything I'm trying to accomplish has already been accomplished. To go out and break a world record, which is already your own, there's little or no motivation. To be #1, which you've always been, there's little or no motivation. The only apparent media-wise motivation would be because no one has ever walked away from a sport at the top in his prime, his or her prime, for 5 years and come back and been the best. And because of genetics and, I guess, history, I'm sort of at the low end of the totem pole. So the odds are greatly against me, but fortunately, while I've been away for 5 years, my competitors have gotten further away from my times. And my nemesis, Greg Foster, who is currently and has been for a while the best hurdler in the world, is a year older than I am. So that gives me some enthusiasm and that there is an opportunity for me to be the best again. Basically, it's my first love. I love track and field, and when I look over at Cornelius Bennett, I'm glad that I'm out of the sport, because they don't make them like they used to. So, and they run faster. So, and someone my size running as fast as I did, and running against someone the stature of Cornelius, usually I came up on the short end of the stick.
How about the lure of the gold medal? Isn't that?
Well, I don't know really what I'm missing when you speak of the gold medal, because my one opportunity in my heyday, as I recall, it was 1980, and I've never really emotionally gotten over the 1980 Olympic Games, and that probably sent me on my way to the National Football League, because track and field, as I view it, is running free, running with nature, with God's gifts. And when a bunch of superpowers, and indeed the United States is one, takes that freedom away from you, it's no longer fun. And I run track and field, and I'm running it right now because it's fun. When the politics come into play, I can never win there. Myself and hundreds of other Americans lose. And I don't want my destiny, as it would have been 1980, at the hands of whoever's in charge, our chief in charge at that time, Jimmy Carter. You know, and it's unfortunate that you have to revamp your ideals when you're growing up, because you see a lot of the Bruce Jenners out there, and you have a lot of aspiring young men and women, the Mary Lou Rettons, who want to strive to have that happen to them, to be on a Wheaties box, to be a gold medal winner, to reap the financial rewards. And in my case, being the world record holder, the best hurdler in the world at age 18, and having nothing but to show up for the games in 1980, make the team, and have my president in charge take that away from me, the games are no longer fun. So 1980, I was disallowed because of discrepancy in the rules, amateur versus professional. 1988, the games are in Seoul, Korea. I don't know what's going to happen. I still think there are going to be some political implications, if not directly related to the United States, but some other people. The Los Angeles Games, there was a boycott. My return is solely on what Ronaldo wants to do for himself. I'm competing because I love hurdles. I was the best for 5 years. I went away to do something else to broaden my horizons athletically. I'm coming back because I want to come full cycle and close my athletic chapter back into my first love. And whether or not I have a gold medal has no bearing on it. If I do, if I get a chance to compete in 1988 in Seoul, that's great. That's added incentive, but that's not the sole purpose.
Thank you very much. Yes?
Yeah, what toll, if any, do you think pro football has taken on your body and what it might do to you in the future?
I think in my case, you train for years and years to finally tune your body, and you're in touch with every organism that you can possibly sense at the time in track and field. Any imbalance, you know, there's a warning sign, and you do the right precautionary things to protect that. In professional football, in my case, I guess because I was perceived as a very, very frail and small specimen, there was no pain, no gain syndrome, the cloud that was around me at all time. So I think I endured more than I had to physically. I lost a lot of respect for myself I guess in retrospect now, when you see some of the things I had to do. My first year I had knee surgery. My second year I hurt my shoulder, separated clavicle. My third year was the only year I was somewhat healthy. My fourth year tore L4 and L5. And to be the best hurdler in the world and do things, monitor your every balance, to finally tune yourself to know exactly what's going on, and all of a sudden just have a blatant disregard for it because of intimidation, macho respect. You know, I'm at fault and I feel badly about that, but football, obviously because of my lack of size, enhanced my pain threshold, you know, immensely. So now in my efforts in training, when I don't want to train and I get tired or something is fatiguing, I am able to endure a little bit because of that mentality that I had to endure throughout my 4 years with the 49ers.
Mr. Nehemiah, can you comment quickly on the drug problems within track and field? We've mentioned football and boxing, some other professional sports. Do you think it's as extensive within the track and field as that?
I don't know if it's a problem here in America. I haven't heard of that many cases, if at all. I mean, there's always rumors if someone, male or female, are having a abnormally good year, someone might jokingly say they might be on anabolic steroids. It's always been a European myth that they're on steroids. I don't know. I think it's a crime and it's an insult to do it to anyone's body for a short-lived period of glory. I mean, for 1, 2 years or whatever, and you have the rest of your life to live. If you can't do it on your own God-given ability, then, 10 years down the road, when you're having some ailment that's causing you bodily harm and bodily problems, you'll look back and regret every moment of it. But we're in such an excellence era, meaning in athletics, meaning that if you're not the best, or one will do anything to be the best, that there are a lot of misled youngsters that are coming up, and they see a lot of people that are, setting bad examples, doing it their way and not the right way. And I think it starts in the grade schools, the elementary schools, that you have to set up the right fundamentals, teaching a young man or woman the right way to go about preparing his or her body.
Edwin Moses going to get beaten this year?
They can't beat him if he doesn't run.
Richard Waters of the Sporting News. Once upon a time, it was strictly baseball, and it's had a real evolution. Where are you going to take the paper in the next few years?
Past SI, I hope. As you know, Frank, we do things a lot different than you do. Primarily the fact that we appeal to the hard-nut sports fan rather than to a general audience public. And the years when the Sporting News was the Bible of baseball died in 1962 when J.G. Taylor Spink passed away. His son brought us into the next 3 majors when we took on football, basketball, and hockey. And when I took over in 1981, we picked up everything else: golf, tennis, auto racing, horse racing, and tried to get the highlights on most other major sporting events throughout the U.S. at least. And as those who read us know that we've branched into the foreign coverage also. The idea, Frank, is just to keep this thing growing steadily and with a lot of strength behind it to give the people what they really want.
Do you find taste changing a great deal?
Yes. One of the areas, for instance, that we're the weakest on is in softball coverage. And there's more people that play softball in the United States than any other sport, probably. So we hear from those sports enthusiasts whose coverage we are not granting them. Lacrosse is another sport that's growing rapidly here in this country. And I think there's a lot more room for coverage of these. I hate the word secondary sports because that's only in the minds of the sports editors. But we're trying to give people everything that they want, and we'll continue to do so.
I got to tell you that even though I work for Sports Illustrated, I've got a screenplay of mine that's filming in Florida right now. And it's about an old washed-up baseball player. And it starts with a page of the Sporting News from the 1950s. So I'm giving you a very nice plug, and I'll expect something of a kickback from
well, the royalties are very reasonable for the use of our covers.
There's another scene where the old player reads to a little girl like it's a bedtime story, reads her out of the Sporting News.
Are you sure this has been cleared with us?
No, you're not complaining, are you?
Not yet.
Bowie Kuhn, who's this year's author, before that, Commissioner of Baseball. In the wake of the Al Campanis furor, an awful lot of people have said very glibly, baseball should do this, the commissioner should do this, so forth. How indeed can a commissioner in baseball, football, basketball, whatever, how can he mandate those kind of changes? In fact, what I'm saying is there any reason to expect that the people in charge can make those kind of changes?
I think that the commissioner has enormous power through the good offices that he holds as commissioner to accomplish almost anything he wants to accomplish. Plainly, the most apparent power of the commissioner is to say you can't do this and you can't do that. In other words, to say no to all kinds of things that happen in baseball. But the question that you're asking, Frank, is can he really take positive steps? Can he say you must hire people in particular? When I became commissioner, I was faced with two very particular arguments. One is there were no blacks from the Negro Leagues in the Hall of Fame, and there were no black managers. Those were the two principal things that people talked about when I started out. And so I was faced with this very problem. How do you achieve it? You can't order these things to be done. I think with a little resourcefulness, it was done. Today, there are many blacks from the Negro Leagues in the Hall of Fame because I went to work, I talked to the people, I jawboned, you put a little pressure on here, a little pressure on there, things happen. In fairly short order, we had our first black manager in Frank Robinson, and then we had Larry Doby, then we had Maury Wills, and we had other blacks being offered managing opportunities. And none of that was anything that the commissioner had any power at all to order. But by using the enormous prestige and power of the office, you can get things done if you'll just work at it. And I am as confident as I can be that Peter Ueberroth, who knows how to run a pretty good crusade, as he demonstrated in 1984 with the LA Olympics, will seize this opportunity. It's tailor-made for Ueberroth, absolutely tailor-made for Peter, to go to work on the major league clubs and say, look, we're going to have to make changes here. You guys better start reporting to me what you're doing, and we're going to have changes, and I'm not going to go through another year of being embarrassed by this situation in Major League Baseball. And I predict that you will see results achieved through Peter's efforts.
Yeah. Do you think on another subject, the talk of collusion?
You need ask no more. I can answer.
Yeah. All right.
The collusion obviously has to do with the present situation in Major League Baseball, where there have been some quality free agents out there who have not been signed, whereas in the past those quality free agents certainly would have been signed by George Steinbrenner or somebody else. As I've said many times in answer to this question, I have the wonderful luxury of not knowing the facts, therefore I can give you any answer I'd like.
Sound like the press.
Just like the press. But I don't take free hot dogs and those other things. Anyway, I suspect, none of your business, Howard, keep out of my damned answer. I suspect that the facts are in baseball a lot simpler than they seem to be. Plainly, this is the problem is the basis of a grievance, which has been filed by the Players Association, and an arbitrator is going to have to decide it. We'll have to wait and see how he goes, but my guess is that what you have here is a situation where the man who led the fiscal madness up, namely George Steinbrenner, has looked in the last couple of years at the bottom line of his operation, didn't like it, looked at some of the good player development clubs and saw that they were doing a heck of a lot better than he was, liked that a lot better, and all of a sudden Jack Morris is no longer somebody he grabs. Now, if that is the case, and that appears to be the case, the other clubs who were forced by public relations reasons to follow George up in the madness are going to quickly sit back and say, we're going to watch this process for a while and see what happens. My strong guess, and it's nothing more than that, Frank, is that that's what you're really looking at. I've known these men in this business, men and women in this business, as a matter of fact, as boy lawyer, commissioner, and gray-haired ex-commissioner, lawyer for 37 years. I've never known them to agree on what they had for breakfast. I don't think they've started doing it now, and I think as complex as this, but time will only tell.
Thank you. Yes.
Seeing as how you're in Hank Aaron's hometown, I would like to hear some comments from you about the misunderstanding, shall we say, when Hank was reaching his goal, the home run. Everything okay between you and Hank now?
Oh, I think things are fine between me and Hank. As I say in hardball, this surprised some people, as a matter of fact. I was really hurt by Aaron's criticism. I was criticized by a lot of hot shots during my time as commissioner, from Finley to Steinbrenner to Turner. You know, you could go on, and the media fairly broadly here and there. And most of that ran off my back. But Henry Aaron is a man for whom I have a great affection and respect. And when Henry Aaron came after me, it bothered me. It really did bother me. And he was dead wrong. I think he was dead wrong. I'd gone to Cincinnati when he hit 714, and Henry took the position that I literally had to come to wherever he was playing a game and stay there until he hit 7:15. And I thought he was absolutely dead wrong. The commissioner's got a lot of things to do. And one of the things I don't think you're called upon to do is simply follow a great athlete around, no matter how great he is. And what Henry was implying is that because he was not Babe Ruth, but was Henry Aaron, that I didn't show enough respect for his achievement. And he was just dead wrong on that. I had great respect for his achievement. Henry was off base. I think it was widely recognized that Henry was off base, but not as widely as it should have been. But Henry and I, we've always gotten along wonderfully. We continue to get along wonderfully. I'm as fond of him as ever. I just wish he hadn't taken the tack he took.
Mr. Thorpe, could you tell us about the difficulties in removing your father's body from Pennsylvania back to Oklahoma?
That's a winner. I'd gone up to Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. I'd been in Allentown, Pennsylvania on Boy Scout fundraising. And the host asked me if I wanted to go up to Jim Thorpe. And when I got there, the mayor and the chief of police and the school and the whole bank of cameras and newspaper reporters, and I thought I was just going to go up and visit my father's grave. And one of the reporters asked me what I felt about my father's body being in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. And I told them that I like to say the way that I feel, and I didn't want them to be finding out later on how I really felt. And I would tell them right there that my father was a American Indian from Oklahoma, born and raised there in that culture, and that he wanted to be buried where his family was, where his father, his sisters, and his brothers, and be put away in the traditional Indian manner. That never came about. And I do not fault Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. I think it was a wonderful gesture to name the town after my father. But my father wanted to be buried in Oklahoma, and as far as I'm concerned, that's where I'd like to see him also, to respect his wishes. And I know I caused quite a furor when I made that statement. But like I told the town of Jim Thorpe, that the bones of my father will not break or make that town. It's the people that's living there that do that. And I just asked for the remains back. I know the people in Jim Thorpe had asked if I was going to, or if the family was going to file suit in court. And we said we have no intention to do that. And all we were asking for was out of the graciousness of their hearts that they would return the remains of our father back to the family and to his Indian people to be able to put him away where he wanted to be.
Do you think there's any chance, have you been given any reason to think that Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania will give up the bones of Jim Thorpe?
No, not at this time. And I don't think we're going to pursue it. As far as in the courts, I'll continue to pursue in the press, because I would like to see my father put away where he wanted to be. No fault, again, of Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, but the man had never been there. He had gone to Indian school in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, but he had never been to that town. And as far as Indian people were concerned, as far as the culture and traditional ways and the name that he had made for the American Indian, not only the American Indian, but for the people of the United States, I think they should respect his wishes that I know if you died and somebody put you someplace where you didn't want to be, that you'd come back and do a little number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ditchington.
Yes, sir.
Your sister died when she was very young.
Yes.
She ever talk about the future that never was? Did she ever talk about what she would have liked to have been had she lived a lot older? Do you think, can you imagine what Babe would be now if she were still with us?
Well, most of her sport life, I wasn't with her at that time. But I think on the LPGA, she wanted to do more in that field. But she just didn't get the support from all the people she had to get the support from.
Do people still recognize her name when they hear your name? Do they make the connection, or has...
Oh, definitely.
They still do?
Mm-hmm.
That has not been forgotten?
It's a high honor for me, I'll tell you, to be here. Because it's something else that I'll never forget.
And her memory is Still sustained.
Still standing. We're having a wonderful tournament coming up for her in the latter part of May, Memorial Day weekend, and it's just in North Texas. That is around the North Texas area that we are, and she's thought about it quite a bit.
Thank you. Okay, we're right on time, and for the next 20 minutes, the press is allowed to zero in on these gentlemen and ladies and hit them one-to-one. So go at it. Thank you all.